Sawadee Kap. All right, I'm really excited to be here. This is my first time presenting live in Thailand, I think, even though I've been coming to Asia for 20 years plus. My first time with a live Thai audience, so that's great. I've been told that I should open up with a joke, except the only joke that I know is about 10 minutes long, and I don't think you'll have the patience to wait around for that. So we're just going to jump into it a little bit here. You guys ready with the closed captions? You good? Those are English. All right, so just give you some quick background on who I am. 33 years in the Silicon Valley means that I saw a lot of things, got a lot of really amazing experiences. And just to kind of give you some background so you kind of know who I am, I thought I'd share some of those. So I'm going to take longer to introduce myself than I normally would. I started off doing systems engineering in 1990. And even before that, when I was a teenager in the 1980s, I had access to Unix and internet. Was anybody here using the internet in the 1980s? Nobody? Showing how old I am. So I really progressed from that into doing networking. So I started off on the systems engineering side, then I started doing networking. I worked at a company called Kalpana that invented the Ethernet switch and was eventually acquired by Cisco Systems. So all those Catalyst switches that you use now or your customers use now, those were inspired by Kalpana's initial work on Ethernet switches, which meant I got to do something really incredible, which was build the first fully switched data center in the Silicon Valley in 1993. I progressed from doing kind of LAN stuff to doing wide area networking, backbone engineering. I built out AS2828, which became one of the larger tier 1 providers in the United States over time. And then from there into information security, I was doing cybersecurity for a long time. I built the largest managed security service provider on the West Coast. We were the biggest distributor of checkpoint firewalls. We were running some of the largest IPsec VPNs in 1998. And then about that time, a little bit after that time, I progressed that was the first time I moved to Asia and actually started working in Asia. I was working in Hong Kong for a company called iAsiaWorks, and iAsiaWorks was the first Pan-Asian data center business, data center and co-location. So we were working on building 100,000 square foot facilities in Hong Kong, Taipei, and Seoul, and trying to really bring kind of the Silicon Valley style of data centers to Asia. So then things start to get interesting because I decided that I wanted to stop working at startups, which had been my entire career, small tech businesses, and I wanted to build my own startup. So I took this open source tool called Puppet, which at that time had maybe 50 users in the entire world. And I built some automation tools around it with a couple of buddies of mine so that we could define an in-tier web application, web layer, load balancing layer, web layer, app layer, database layer. And then we could dynamically provision that onto something called Amazon Web Services Elastic Compute Cloud, which at that time was in private beta. No load balancing, no block storage, no VPC networks. You could get one kind of instance or single kind of virtual machine. Just one, not the dozens or hundreds you can get now, just one type. And that was it. That's all EC2 did. And we built the first system that fully automated the deployment of an in-tier web app, scaled it up, and then automatically auto-scaled it up and down based off of load. That was in December of 2006. And that's kind of the early days of what people call DevOps. So about that time, I started doing some public speaking. I was blogging a lot, and it was interesting because most of the people who were talking about cloud computing at that time, we all used different terms. We called it grid computing, or we called it utility computing. Some people called it cloud computing. But this is very, very early days. And so nobody had completely decided what the right term was. So in summer of 2008, a group of us bloggers, the ones who were kind of the more well-known, got together for the first San Francisco Cloud Club. And we just all needed to use the same term. So we started using that term cloud computing. And that's where the phrase was coined. So when we all went back and started blogging, from then on, everybody used the same terms, cloud computing, and that basically took off as the phrase that everybody uses now to describe that phenomena. So that first startup I attempted did not go the way I wanted it to, sort of bad timing hitting the 2008 financial crisis. But it put me in a position to work on my second startup, a company called Cloud Scaling. And cloud scaling was interesting because it was at the beginning of the OpenStack movement. And we had some really great opportunities, like we were able to build the first public cloud in Korea for Korea Telecom in 2010. I spent 9 months in Seoul in 2010, leading a small team of engineers, about 10 of us, building out that cloud, and basically in a central office in Mokdong on the outskirts of Seoul, 12-hour days, really small room, bad air conditioning. It was an adventure, but it was fun and we learned a lot. And I'm going to talk some more about cloud scaling here in a second. One of the things that sort of made me famous or infamous to a certain degree in Silicon Valley was this thing called pets versus cattle, which is a meme that I use to basically describe the old way of doing things versus the new way of doing things. I'm not going to get into that today, but I encourage you to go look at it online. But that's one of the things that kind of propelled me into sort of an area where people were asking for me to present and talk at a lot of conferences very frequently. Then in 2012, my company, Cloud Scaling, being one of the early OpenStack businesses, building a product around OpenStack, we were part of the formation of the OpenStack Foundation, which was a nonprofit organization designed to house the OpenStack software and community and to give it cover, give it a legal structure, and to have a sort of marketing engine so that we could do outreach around OpenStack. And I sat on the OpenStack board of directors for 3 to 4 years. In 2014, I had the good fortune to sell my startup, Cloud Scaling, the OpenStack-based startup, to Dell EMC. And then after that, I went to Juniper Networks, where I was running open source there as well. And so I think that's plenty. I'm going to skip over some of these. Okay, let's get to what's interesting to talk about. So what's going on with VMware? Right? I mean, we've all kind of seen sort of what's been happening over the last couple years, and more importantly, over the last 3-4 months with the whole Broadcom acquisition, right? It hasn't been going well. It's been messy. Now, we can attribute some of that to Broadcom, and we can attribute some of that to VMware, but more importantly, it's because of the structure of what's going on. Broadcom used to be a silicon design and chip manufacturing company. That's what it used to be. But it was acquired by a company called AVGO, and that is its current trading stock symbol on Wall Street right now. If you go look it up, AVGO is Broadcom's trading ticker. And AVGO was basically created by a bunch of private equity firms. So Broadcom is no longer a silicon and chip design company. It's a holding company. And if you're familiar with holding companies, what holding companies do is they gather up as many other companies as they can. They go on an acquisition spree, just as Broadcom has, and they try to aggregate those companies and extract as much money, as much profit out of them as possible. And that's really what's happened. So this is the first time in Broadcom's life that it started to have software elements. It's a hardware company, or has been. It's changing. It acquired CA, it acquired Symantec, and now it's acquired VMware. And in each of these cases, CA and Symantec before VMware, it ran the exact same playbook. Cut costs, increase prices, extract as much money as possible. When you look at these big businesses, especially other companies besides VMware, CA, Symantec, they all look the same, which is that they have these really strong relationships with the largest enterprises. They sell millions and millions of dollars. I remember when we were in delivering my product to AT&T, my OpenStack-based product for my startup, and there was a whole bunch of sort of stuff going on in the background. I couldn't tell what was going on. So I stopped Toby Ford, who was our sort of champion there. And I said, Toby, why are you guys so distracted? What's going on? And he said, we're renewing our Oracle license. I said, okay. He said, yeah, it's $300 million a year. I said, you could buy a database company for that. AT&T's annual Oracle bill, $300 million a year in 2011. You do that for 5 years, it's $1.5 billion. You can buy several database companies for that, right? So the reality is that these companies, these holding companies like Broadcom, that VMware is becoming, they're really hyper-focused on their biggest accounts to extract the most money, and they really don't care about the long tail of their customers. And we know this because Broadcom told us. In 2021, at their investor relations meeting, they basically said, hey, all of our revenue comes from 600 customers. That's all that matters. The other 106,000, we just couldn't care less about. And I'm guessing that you're in that 106,000, or some of your customers are in that 106,000. So what's been happening since November? Well, free VMware ESXi was canceled. It's gone. Can't get it anymore. VMware perpetual licenses, gone, canceled, right? Can't get those anymore. When you're off your current perpetual licenses, you can't re-up them. You know, you can't sort of game the system to make it work for your financials. And this has been happening all over the, in a bunch of variety of different ways, right? You can't get a la carte software anymore. You got to buy the full bundles from VMware, right? You can't go in and just buy, vSAN. You can't just go buy, regular ESX. You have to buy the bundles. And maybe a bunch of software that you don't use and don't care about. Channel and partner programs were canceled, right? They're being replaced by Broadcom programs, but what does it look like? Who wins? Who benefits? They've already told us they don't care about anybody but the biggest accounts, right? Dell decided to stop shipping ESX on their hardware. That's a first. Dell's been shipping ESX on Dell boxes, I think, since 2006 or something like that, a long time ago, right? We're going to see others follow suit, IBM, Lenovo, et cetera. And that's why when we talk to customers, they tell us that when they look at the subscription license model, having to buy the bundles, not being able to get free ESXi, not being able to use perpetual licenses, that when they look at a 3 to 5 year time frame, their costs for those licenses is 3 to 4 times more expensive. And that's why we think the great VMware migration has begun, right? We've gone, okay, I started here November 1st, and I had a certain mandate, and my mandate had nothing to do with VMware. But what we've seen is since I started in November, when that acquisition closed, that we have people coming to us over and over. Multinationals are asking us for help. Governments, not just the Thai government, other Southeast Asian governments are asking us for help. Large Thai enterprises are asking us for help. Everybody's trying to figure out how they get off of VMware. You got people like Nutanix creating custom packages for getting off of VMware, right? Like, I hate to say it, but we're looking at the end of VMware. And I know that's kind of hard to grasp because it seems like they've been around forever, but, we can see the end. We can see the horizon. So, what's your plan? If VMware is dying, are you gonna, run from the tiger and jump into the jaws of a crocodile? Like, is that your plan? You're gonna go from one piece of vendor lock-in to another piece of vendor lock-in? You're gonna go to Nutanix, and then Broadcom acquires Nutanix? You're gonna go to Microsoft, Hyper-V, get locked into Hyper-V? Like, really, is that your best plan? Is that in the interest of your customers? Right? There's only one good solution, and it's been here for a while, and that's going open cloud. You want a no lock-in solution. You want optionality. You want choice. You want lower cost. OpenStack, which we're going to talk about quite a bit today, has been around for almost 14 years now. It is mature, it's battle-tested, it's been proven at massive scale. And guess how much the licenses cost? Nothing. It's open source. And here's the most important thing. Should you be spending a lot of money on virtualization anyway? Is that what's really important for your business, or is it something else? So in a moment, I'm going to jump in and go into some detail about what I mean by an open cloud. But if anybody has any questions, you can take some photos there and anonymously submit questions to the MCs, and then I can take them now or at the end of my next presentation, which will be just here in a minute. We probably don't have any questions yet, right? That's my guess.
ขอบคุณคุณแลนดี้ค่ะสำหรับเซสชันนี้มีใครมีคำถามไหมคะสามารถสแกน QR Code ที่อยู่จอด้านซ้ายและด้านขวามือของทุกท่านได้เลยนะคะระหว่างนี้ค่ะขอเชิญดร.อภิศักดิ์จุลยาค่ะขึ้นไปพูดคุยกับคุณแลนดี้นะคะเกี่ยวกับหัวข้อ A Vision of Life After VMware ค่ะ
Okay, before I get you to the next session, I think what we present today is something probably a lot of people know already here. But the key thing here is that when we start moving to cloud, the first thing we understand that they always say cloud is good. It's going to make it cheaper, you know. It's good to help you do a lot of things. You don't have to invest a lot in this thing, but it turned out not to be like that. Cost of cloud is getting to be higher. I think this is the key that we want to address today, and I think you did some of that introduction on that one. Is there anything that you would like to all of our partners to understand and talk to their customers a little bit about this?
Yeah, so we can talk about some of that offline, or maybe we could even do an ad hoc session. You'll see that we have solutions for all of this as we go through the presentations today. But the thing that's really important to understand is that it's always about the right tool for the job. Sometimes public cloud is the right tool for the job. Sometimes it is not. Sometimes private cloud is the right tool for the job. Sometimes it is not. I'll give you an example. Who here uses Netflix? I know you do, so raise your hands. Come on. I know it's almost all of you. So Netflix has a business model where it has times with peak streaming, right? Everybody's at home in the evening and the weekend, everybody's on Netflix. Then during the day, you have load or trough of streaming. You have the least streaming going on when people are, at work and busy and doing their thing, right? Now, if Netflix built their servers and data centers so that it would always manage peak capacity, and they were running only on their own servers in their own data centers, they would have to build out to their peak capacity. And in doing that, their costs would be double or triple. And your cost for Netflix would be double or triple, right? What they do is they run on cloud because they've got dynamic workload. So when it goes up, they can scale up on AWS. When it goes down, they can scale down. That's the key. Cloud workloads are not supposed to be static workloads. They're supposed to be dynamic workloads. CI/CD, build and test, VDI. There are lots and lots and lots of dynamic workloads. And in the past, companies had no choice but to overbuild peak capacity in their data centers because there was no cloud. And I know that companies like Kaiser Permanente in California, a healthcare company would run at, say, 20% of their capacity most of the time. That means they spent 80% on capacity they did not use, right? So the world we're trying to move to is a world where you do the smart thing with building your own private cloud, and you combine that with public cloud, and you use the right tool for the job, you put the right workloads in the right place.
Okay, thank you, Randy. I think, in today, the whole day, I think you're going to learn a lot about NIPA Cloud product. I think we got variety of the product for you, starting for SME, you want to go to enterprise, or you want to go higher than that. I think the OpenStack is built to scale, all right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you got to understand that a little bit more. But the other thing I like to talk about is that we heard a lot lately, AWS cancel the charge for the egress, right? If you recall that one, whatever traffic that you have to download from AWS to your own hard disk, you don't have to pay anymore. Okay, They cancel that kind of cost. It used to be like if you whatever you put it up, it's free. If you want to download anything, it's going to cost you money. Okay, and that's really not a good idea. But I think it makes the cost of cloud is even higher. But the reason for that, I think it's about the we call the EU Data Act, which just came out effective on 1st of January. And in this Data Act, it said that, hey, all the data that you create within the EU, you must share. You must be able to share it. You can't really just keep it. I mean, any provider cannot do that. So I think you're going to see the change of this thing in terms of cost of cloud is coming down a little bit more and more, because by keeping your data inside of your own data center, and if you have to pay for bringing it back, it's not your data anymore, right? So this is something that I like to share to the audience as well.
All right.
Okay, any
All right, we have
Q&A?
Yeah, a question for Randy. Do you think a big customer will switch away from VMware?
We're already talking to a large multinational out of the Silicon Valley that's looking to switch off of VMware. 13 data centers, 10 countries.
Yeah.
325 hypervisors, 7,200 virtual machines.
Right.
Yeah, so it's already in process. People are already looking at moving from VMware, even the larger ones. I mean, the reality is that nobody wants to be locked in, even larger businesses. I mean, I always find it funny because you go and you talk to a large enterprise, and they'll say, "Oh, we're dual vendor, we're multi-vendor, right? So we only buy Cisco and Juniper for our routing, for example." And they sort of mean that, but not really, because it's like 99% Cisco and 1% Juniper. So that if Cisco does anything they don't like, they can say, "Hey, we're going to talk to Juniper," right? So it's just like a leverage point. So in a way, a lot of large enterprises choose to lock themselves into these vendors because they have relationships, but a lot of the reason they're willing to do that is the relationships. And you can see that the steps that Broadcom is starting to make now endangers those relationships. When we talked to this large multinational, they said, "We're going to have one more try at talking to VMware, but it's been hard. The meetings are not friendly." So I think what we're seeing the beginning of a very large move. That's why we talk about the great VMware migration. And it started, and I don't see any reason why it's going to stop.
Okay, all right. I think you get a lot of information about VMware. Now I think we can move on to any more questions?
Yeah, we got the last questions. At the existing VMware customer, how we determine the migration cost to OpenStack, and what would be the key concern to make a decision?
That's what we're going to present on today.
Okay.
We have many, many slides to talk about that. So that question will be answered by the end of the day for certain, in
Okay.
detail,
Great.
including demonstrations.